Yeah, so today's class is going to be about natural disasters. We are going to describe natural disasters and preparing for them. I don't mean preparing for them. I mean preparedness. How prepared we are for these natural disasters. So I don't know you, but I guess that I personally don't have any preparedness for those events. Um, Here in Mexico, we are blessed because we don't have um, as many problems as in many other countries.
Yes.
But anyway, we do. For example, now that we have this kind of weather, and in Veracruz there is a tornado, a hurricane.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, do you know what's happening now, today, in other parts of our country?
No, I don't know.
No? Javier, what about you? Javier, yoo-hoo. Don't be shy. Okay,
Uh, no, well, we are experiencing problems, but not just in Mexico, all around the world, with these changes in the weather. Because, well, we are in November, and the rainy season is supposed to be or to finish in September, no? So it has been raining all October, and we are just halfway in November, and it continues raining. So it's kind of not the regular weather that we are experiencing nowadays.
yes, that's it. And well, I don't know what you think about this, but in my opinion, I guess that as we are not used to undergo this kind of weather, we don't have the preparedness for it because it is unexpected for us. Well, in that's my point of view, but I don't know. What do you think about it, Sergio? Sergio, yoo-hoo. Don't be shy. Don't go. Maybe he went for a coffee. But remember, let's
Yeah.
remember that he's in heaven. So he is not hot. I mean, he's not cold. Well, maybe.
Yes.
All right. So, Javier, what do you think about it?
Well, as a matter of fact, as you mentioned before, we are not prepared, no, for these weather changes that we are experiencing. And I would say that as a culture, as a country, we are not really prepared for any disasters, no, in a way. I remember, for example, on September 19th last year, no, when we got the situation again, in the morning there was a drill, no, an earthquake drill, and you could see just a few ones doing the drill, no, and
Mm-hmm.
the rest of the people just said, "Oh, it is a drill," no,
Yep.
so they didn't participate. But a couple of hours later, it was not a drill, and again, no, we got this disaster because we are not taking things very seriously. But it
Mm-hmm.
is important that we learn and that we are really prepared, no, in order to cope with these kind of situations. I remember that after the earthquake, uh, there were selling some kind of special beds on the internet, which are kind of boxes that in case that you get you are sleeping during the earthquake and something happens, your bed becomes a kind of box where you can survive, and this is made of a very resistant material, and they were selling that. And I would say we should think about something like that and to make it kind of commercial for everybody to consider
Mhm.
that, no? Because you never know when disaster is going to strike, and if you are not prepared, well, that's why a lot of lives are lost during this kind of disasters.
Yeah, that's it. I remember what you said because I saw it also, and it was provided with some food, some water, so that you could survive in a period of time. But yes, you know what? What you said is so true. We are not prepared even for taking these disasters or these events seriously as we should. I remember that in the preparatory school where I am working, children, well, they are not children, they are youngsters. But anyway, they were making jokes about it, and they say, all right, so we are doing this drill, and next it's gonna be a real event. And yes, a couple of hours later, there was a real event. And so some of them were crying, and they were saying, it was my fault because I said that it should be real. And oh, obviously, it was not because you said, it's because, well, it was an event that it's unexpected. But anyway, uh, just to say it was my fault doesn't help any. But
Yeah, that. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
thank you very much. Yes, but we don't have the preparedness for undergoing those kind of situations. So, Javier, my question: have you faced any other uh, sad situation, something that you have lived or known very closely about a natural disaster?
Well, back in 1993, when I went to the United States for the first time, I lived in North Carolina, and the city where I lived, it's like an hour from the beach in North Carolina, near Cape Hatteras and all of that area. And I remember that I arrived on a Friday, and hurricane was to strike on Saturday or Sunday, no, and it was also new for me because I have never been involved in this kind of hurricane situation, no, and I didn't know what to do, if leaving the city, getting inland, or waiting, no. So I just waited and said, well, and thought, well, let's see what happens, no. Fortunately, nothing happened. The rain was not as heavy as expected, but it is it is a kind of a stressing situation, no. Also, I learned that in the city where I lived, there in North Carolina, the previous year there had been a tornado, no? But what they did, they got the children out of the schools, so they got the buses uh, full, and they sent the children to their homes, back to their homes, just to be prepared for the event. But unfortunately, they told me that the tornado hit earlier than expected, and that it left two buses full of school kids, no? And that was a terrible disaster. Um, I don't know what that might be, no? But the times when there were some tornado warnings there where I live, it just looked kind of horrible, no? Because the sky gets kind of dark, and you see the clouds, They are also very dark, and they are like kind of getting down on the to the floor level, and it's just kind of scary, no? Because you don't know how to how to face that because we don't have that, no? So I was not really prepared, but they are there in the United States, and I was amazed that every time that we had a drill for tornado, the even kindergarteners, they would immediately go out of their classroom, get on the hall, and get in the tornado uh, position just to be ready, no? And they would do it very fast. So they take these things seriously because they experience them, I would say, more frequently, no? And that is a change in culture, no? And also, for example, the weather there in the United States, I remember that another time I was driving and suddenly it started driving so heavy that I have to pull over and wait for the rain to stop because I couldn't see the road. It was really heavy rain, no? So those things we don't know how to cope with them because we don't have them a lot here in Mexico, no? Or also
Mm-hmm.
when you drive on the snow. I remember the first time I went to Washington D.C. It was in January, and the road was slippery, and driving on a slippery road is just completely different, no? And I had
Mm-hmm.
never had that experience, so it's something we are not prepared to.
That's it. I totally agree with you. I think, I also believe that when we don't have the experience before and we haven't suffered any losses, any casualties because of these events, then we don't know that it is a tragedy that we are going to face. And I guess that that's the reason why most of our students don't take into consideration a drill as a preparedness event and not just like a joke or a moment for relaxing discipline and for making jokes about everything. All right. Well, thank you very much, Javier. Sergio, what about
Yes.
you? What do you think about it? Have you faced any dangerous event?
Well, not so close, but for example, I was born in Guerrero, and maybe 5 or 6 years ago, there were a lot of rain in that area, and the rivers grown a lot, and they flood some towns. In September of that year, a lot of people lost everything. The the river, the water, um, takes all of his belongings, of their belongings, and they lost all. So I was working in the south of Mexico State, and we organized a lot of help for that people. We traveled maybe 4 hours because a lot of bridges fall down because of the water, so they were incommunicated. So we have to travel in different ways and very lot of travel to get the help to the people. That was one of that kind of things. Maybe 4 years ago, here in Colima, the volcano erupts. So it was a kind of little eruption, but maybe 2 or 3 towns were affected. There were a lot of ashes in all the states, and we have to do something to help people.
Yeah, and I think as there was a lot of ash, maybe some people could have been sick or I don't know.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
in that time, the recommendation of the authorities was that you have to be in your house. You must be there and put something like wet clothes in next to the doors to avoid the ash to enter to your house.
Oh my. Yeah, those things are so difficult to cope. But you know what? I guess that I really agree with this phrase. I don't know what you think about it. Javier, could you help me reading it, please?
Yes, we cannot stop natural disasters, but we can arm ourselves with knowledge. So many lives wouldn't have to be lost if there was enough disaster preparedness. Petra Minkuba.
Thank
Minkuba.
you, Nemkova. All right, thank you very much, Javier. All right, so what, Sergio, what do you think about this?
Yes, that's true. I really admire the Asian culture because they are so prepared but to any kind of disaster. Even when they are in kindergarten, they are prepared. They have drills to be prepared for any kind of disaster. We need that kind of preparedness.
That's it. And thank you very much. Javier, what do you think about this? What's your opinion?
Well, as we have mentioned along this session, no, we really need to prepare to take things seriously so that when the disaster hits, we know what to do. And even though we do know what to do, it's not the same situation when you have the disaster, no? We have, for example, in Mexico City, now in the state of Mexico, the alerta sísmica. And according to what they said about this system, we have like some 30, 20 seconds before the earthquake starts, no? Unfortunately, last September 18th, no, last year, the 19th, the situation was completely different because it started, well, the earthquake started, and then we heard the alerta sísmica. So conditions are different, and I think that we should try to do the drills, but playing the different situations that we might experience, no? Because one is when you have time and maybe you kind of take it easy, and yes, you are in a hurry not to try to get out of where you are, but still, you know, it is not, the earth is not moving, no? But last September, I remember that when I tried to open the door, it was kind of difficult to open the door to get out of the house because of the movement, no? The earth was moving a lot, and it's not the same as when you hear the alerta sísmica, and then you have time just to live, and there is no movement. So we need to try to think, emulate. Well, emulate we cannot do it, no, but we need to consider both situations, and in both cases we need to be trained and be told what to do, so that we can react the correct way, no? Because if it is the earth is moving and you go downstairs and with the movement, people might fall down, and then you can have more wounded than expected, no? Or that could be if you knew what to do.
Yeah, you know what? I totally agree with you. I remember that my daughter, she's studying in FES Aragon, and she told me that yes, they have already made the drill, but it is not the same because whenever you do that kind of drills, first of all, you know that it's not an emergency. Secondly, anything is moving, so it's so easy to go out. But whenever the real event happened, they were scared. So some of them were paralyzed. And so as they couldn't move, some of their friends came back to carry them on and take them out of the building. And even the stairs were moving, And so they were so scared that they were running and they were screaming. And well, it was a real chaos. And so, well, I think that, yes, we need a lot more training for those cases. And even there should be also some people who is trained in first aids. And there should be also some other people who can be trained in psychological help to people who is in a shock. So there are many things that we should consider. But well, you know what? Here we have natural disaster preparedness. Well, first of all, they mentioned that what we need after a disaster is the mitigation of pain. But for getting to this mitigation, we need public information and warning. Do you consider that we have enough public information, public warning? What about you, Sergio? What do you think?
No, not really. I don't think that we have enough information. There are a lack of information in all kind of disasters. We are not prepared for that.
Okay, thank you very much, Sergio. Javier, what do you think about this point?
Yes, we are really lacking information, as Sergio mentioned it, no? As we were saying, yes, we are told what to do on a drill, no? In case of a disaster. But we are thinking about that perfect condition, no, or situation in which you have time to get out of where you are. Now you have a few seconds and you don't have to worry about the movement. But they never tell you what to do when the earthquake is already on, no? And if you can live, if you cannot live, because also with the movement, if you are locked, no, or you cannot open the door, because that is one situation that might happen because of the movement. So how to manage that situation, no? And that is one thing that they don't teach you. They only tell you, you know what, when you hear the alert, you just have to walk out, no, quietly, and try to do it fast. But that's all they tell you. And what happens when you have the disaster on?
Later on, what should I do? Yeah, that's it. You're right. Okay, thank you very much. Now, you know what? The second step is to make an evaluation about long-term vulnerability, reduction. So we should analyze how we are going to reduce that vulnerability at a long term. Something that happened when the earthquake in the last September happened, that was everybody was longed to help. Everybody was donating food, clothes, goods. But it was for a short time, because so soon people was exhausted and people thought that it was enough and they didn't help anymore. And so whenever an event like this happens, the help should be permanent, still the moment that we know that everything has been solved. I remember that when the 1985 earthquake happened, there were many people who were affected. There were numerous casualties. And so the result of this was that, okay, there were donations, there was a lot of help, there were many people who were volunteering, but what happened later was that very soon everybody forgot what happened and nobody else was helping. And so there were many people who were homeless. and they stayed like homeless. They finished eating or looking for food in the garbage. They finished dying from starving because they couldn't have that resilience to continue their lives and to help themselves inside. And so that's what this means, that the long-term vulnerability should be reduced by help. So I don't know, what do you think about this, Javier?
Well, I learned on the internet that Paris Hilton made some donations, no, especially there in Xochimilco, and that she came this week. She came back to see how the rebuilding of the houses is going there, no? And I was wondering, well, what did she find, no? How were the things? Because she gave a lot of money for
Mm-hmm.
the rebuilding over there in Xochimilco, but a lot of that money didn't get to the people, no, who were affected, and unfortunately, it's not just maybe the community, but it is the authorities, the ones who are not doing their jobs. They are not helping people, and it's very sad. No, for example, this was a natural disaster, and as a country, you know that you need to have a kind of insurance or a way to get money in case that something happens, because you know that you are exposed to that kind of situations. And to really do the rebuilding, no, la reconstruction, as they called it, but for it to be real, because I remember that they said that they were giving people like 70,000 pesos in order to rebuild, no? And also the government was going to get the new houses built, and that they were going to give some mortgages to people who lost their homes to the natural disaster, and that they were going to give them some good conditions with the credit, no? But I was thinking, how is that going to be done if the people have already maybe paid for their homes, no? And they need to pay again, or what happened for people who were paying their apartments and or their houses, and they came down? Do they continue paying them, and then they have to pay the one that they lost? Also, they have to pay for the new one. So that's just criminal, because that is not helping people, no?
Yeah,
So
and
you
even
are not really rebuilding.
yeah, yeah, that's it. And even when so an amount of money was donated that it was possible, really possible, to rebuild their homes, and that people shouldn't give more money. But how in the name of God they are in the middle of a disaster and they have to pay for having a new home? It's incredible. And yes, I totally agree with you. Okay, well, Sergio, what do you think about it?
Well, I agree with Javier about the corruption in the authorities, because that's the biggest problem in Mexico. We have a lot of money that was lost in this kind of situations. The authorities take advantage of the disasters. They took the money, they took the donations, they use it for another things, and that's a big problem. Today, there are people that are still living in tents. You can find tents donated by China that are being sold on internet. So there are a lot of dirty things about the authorities in that kind of situations.
Yeah, I agree. They are not only dirty, but they are filthy.
Yeah.
So nasty. But
Yes.
anyway, all right. You know what? The next step is operational coordination. Of course, it is not going to be done by only one person or only one organism. It should be done by many different groups so that it can be well coordinated, so that it can be effective. But you know what? It makes me remember that when the earthquake in Mexico City happened last September, there were lots of people helping. They were trying to rescue people, and they narrated that the army didn't let those people to continue with their labors because they said that there was risk and that etc etc. And so the army was an obstacle for those groups to help people to continue be saving people. So have you heard anything like that, Sergio?
Yes, I heard an opinion, and there is something strange about that because they said that there was a specific building that was a kind of a spy or something secret operation in that building, and that's why the army was I don't know how to say it, was um, uh, they don't let the people to help in that space because it was a specific kind of operation, international operation that was working there.
They prevented people from doing anything else.
Yes, I heard that. I don't know if it was real or not.
All right. Thank you very much, Sergio. Yes, you're right. Javier, what do you think about it?
Well, it is a fact that yes, we need to coordinate these kind of situations. And well, they have the army in this case, not the navy to do it from the government. There are other things under the table, no, which sometimes make people think differently. But what it is for real is that when you are going to help someone, first you need to make sure that you are going to be sure, no? And I'm telling you this because many years ago when I was very young, I I was in a kind of rescue organization, no? It was a civil organization that we would rescue or help rescuing people when they had accidents. And in the training that they gave us, they always told us, you know what? Yes, you are going to help people, and that is your main focus. No, that is your goal to help. So if you are going to help, you need to make sure that you are going to be safe in order to help other people. Once that you make sure that you can help, go ahead, but do not risk your lives because instead of helping, it's going to be worse, no? And that is one thing that I learned from those lessons. And I know that whenever there is an accident, first thing you have to do is try to get people away, no, so that you can work. And if you have some relatives are always going to be worried about their relative, and they are going to be kind of pressuring you, no, please help him or help her and do this or do that. And the first thing that you have to do before trying to help a person that's in distress is to try to calm and to, let's say, get rid of the relatives so that you can start working. Otherwise, you are not going to help the person the right way, no? So there is a little bit of truth with what happened with the army, no? There are times that the conditions are kind of dangerous, and instead of having maybe one corpse, people who are helping might become corpses too, no? So that is one thing we need to try to understand. But the other thing is that due to what the government does, no, people do not believe them. So it's like being on two different sides of the story, no? But at the end, everything that matters, well, everything that matters is just safety, no, for the people. And I
Yeah,
think that is the most important.
yeah, that's it. You know what? The next step is planning. Of course, everything needs to be planned. Threats and hazard identification. I think that it is something that Protección Civil should be doing, but we know that they were so busy that they tried to do the reports and not to know anything else about it. For example,
Yes.
the reports on the safety of the buildings for schools, for example, so that children could be back to school. So there were many schools that didn't have the conditions for having children in. But anyway, they were dictaminated like, okay, no drama, no panic. Okay, and later on, risk and disaster resilience assessment. How resilient could the society be about the risk? And finally, what we can have is the community resilience, the ability or the possibility that we have to be calm in the middle of the disaster before everything happens, or after that has happened, everything, how calm, how well we can get to be. But well, you know what? I think that it is so extensive. We can be talking a long time about this, and we are going to get to the same point. We need to do something for being prepared because, yes, we need to do more. All right, I don't know if you want to say anything else, Javier, Sergio, to give a comment.
Yes, I think that we have to be prepared. We need to have a plan, a family plan, in that kind of disasters.
That's it. I totally agree. Javier, would you like to say anything else?
Mm. Well, there are many things that need to be done, and let's hope that they are done in the future so that we are better prepared, no, for disasters. As Sergio mentioned, privately, no, or on our own, we can get these family plans in case of a disaster. And I think that that is the most important thing to do and the first step, and then we can help the community.
That's it. Well, I really thank you so much for your participation, for your attendance, and for your attention. And I hope that you are fine and meet you next class. Drink a hot coffee because it is very, very cold. Well, Sergio, you are in heaven. But anyway,
Yes,
a hot coffee is nice all of the time.
yes, I love coffee.
All right. Well, have a very good night and meet you next class.
Thank you, teacher.
Thanks to you. Good night.
Good
Thank you
night.
very much. Good night.
Good night.